So it's clear that the Chinese model and the US model are not the same. The way the US goes about building things or commissioning things or deploying things versus the way the Chinese system goes about this. We imagined that our system was superior in this regard. We participated in China's aggrandizement. What is it about their system that seems to work? What is it about their system that we might want to adapt? Was it about their system that we would not want to adapt? And why? When the systems come into competition, short of a hot war, God forbid, what is it that we can learn from the contrast of the systems, and where are the systems either in overlap or there's some emulation adaptability involved there?
It's an important question. We wrote this book with help and advice, but based on open sources. And I can tell you that our counterparts in Beijing have read all of those same open sources. So they have a very detailed understanding about how our military is organized, about our strengths and about our weaknesses. They are keenly aware of our strengths. And when we have demonstrated them in Desert Storm, for example, we have documentation of them writing about just how formidable we are. But they can also see that the Ready Reserve Force, which is essential to our maritime logistics, is a fleet that was largely built in the 70s and 80s and is in dire need of repair and is running out of mariners. So they have built their own system, not accidentally, to optimize for strengths that correspond to our greatest weaknesses. In a sense, that's a standard second mover advantage. And there's lots of examples of this from military history, some of which we talk about in the book. But that's significant, and if we want to respond accordingly, part of the challenge is one-upping them, and in this next offset, over the next 5-10 years, investing in the right capabilities and systems so that we can hold them at risk where they are relatively weakest. They are very good at setting numerical targets and meeting them. So every year a decision is made somewhere in the bowels of the Central Military Commission: how many ships, how many missiles, how many aircraft, how many drones, how many factories, how many officers, and then that number of things are made, or that number of officials are promoted, or so forth. It's very top-down in that respect. This principle applies across their economy, by the way. And this is a tremendous asset that the United States will not have, and this is because we're a free society with a limited government, and Congress controls the purse strings and so forth. It is harder to assess the qualitative capability, and I think we have to assume that on some level there is a trade-off between sprinting to build as many of the thing as possible and having them be relatively good. There is some uncertainty here, and the details, such as they are known, tend to be classified. But that is definitely a strength. We should treat it as a strength. And then the third strength that I would highlight, getting back to the supply chains point, because it is so important, is that in our system, we rely on private contractors to do the hard work of building the stuff that our military uses. And as Jim Ellis told us in one of our early meetings, for these contractors, this is a business, not a religion. They respond to incentives, to demand signals that they get from Congress and from the Pentagon. And if they don't get the demand signal, they don't hire, train, retain the workers. They don't retain the manufacturing lines and keep them warm. And this is not just true at the level of the suppliers, which are really like final assembly, but at the level of the subcontractors that make all the components. This is a problem because, as we have discovered making ammunition for Ukraine and in other areas, it's not as easy for us to scale production of some of this stuff as we would like. And it's because we haven't paid attention to the effects of our more market-oriented system on those lower levels of the chain. I think there are ways that we can mitigate some of those vulnerabilities without enormous cost or without completely changing the way we structure our economy. But there are specific interventions, policy interventions, that we do have to make. And that theme comes out across the book.